Welcome back into Radio Row here on Thursday morning as we're getting ready for Super Bowl 57 with the Chiefs and the Eagles. I am, of course, Matt Verderame, and he is Jesse Palmer, former NFL quarterback, and all things media these days. Jesse, I know you're working with Crown Royal. Why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about why and what's going on with it?
Really excited to be here on this big stage working with Crown Royal. Obviously, they're the official whiskey sponsor of the NFL, and something that Crown Royal and I both share in common is we're both Canadian. We come from Canada, and so Crown Royal has an incredible commercial during the Super Bowl in the third quarter. David Grohl is going to be sort of on it, and really what it is about giving back. Crown Royal has always been about gratitude and really kind of highlighting all the great things that Canada has given to the world, including helping modify the rules of the game of football, which a lot of people don't know about. There's a lot of things that Canada has given the world, including Hawaiian pizza, which I found out, which I wasn't even aware of. Great inventions. Poutine, the electric wheelchair, garbage bags, egg cartons. But also they helped, they really did, back in 1874, in a game between Harvard and McGill, helped codify and modify the rules of current-day American football to make it look like what it does today. So the commercial is really about highlighting all of that. So being here with Crown Royal and helping celebrate Canada is what I'm doing. It's great.
That's awesome. Well, listen, that's all I got to ask you, being Canadian. I'm assuming you're a hockey fan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit. So who's your team?
Well, so that's why, and you'll appreciate this. You are a hockey fan?
I'm a Devils fan.
You're a Devils fan.
Huge,
okay.
Yep.
So I triple dip. And non-hockey fan, I'm going to tell you who my teams are, and you're going to be like that. You'll get it. Montreal.
Yep.
Because I have a home in Montreal.
Okay.
Toronto.
Wow,
because I was born in Toronto.
I'm a fan of both those teams.
And Ottawa.
You just cover the entire, exactly. You're covering all of Eastern
because
Canada.
Because I'm from there. That'd be like saying you're a Giants fan, an Eagles fan, and a Cowboys fan.
It's like going to a casino and placing a bet on black, red, and 00, and then just hoping you win.
Yeah, exactly. And
yet somehow you
saying it like it's okay. And non-hockey fans are like, cool, awesome, that's great.
That's wild.
Yeah, you can't. Up north of the border, any original Six City or a Devils fan would completely call that out.
Yeah, it's like, for me, it'd be like rooting for the Rangers and the Flyers as well, right? Like I'd have two different fan bases trying to beat me up simultaneously.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's good stuff, man. So I'm curious. Dave Grohl's in this ad. Mm-hmm. Foo Fighters fan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a huge Crown Royal fan.
Okay.
And apparently, always has Crown Royal with him whenever he's on tour, and apparently a massive Canadian fan as well.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'm curious. This game, everybody's talking about all the different mini matchups within the game.
Yeah.
The line play and Hurts and Mahomes and all the rest of it. You played in the league. How do you size this game up? What do you look for and say, okay, I think this might be the X factor, or maybe this is the thing that I think one team can't overcome. What are you looking at? I
mean, I think there's so many juicy storylines in this one, and I think that the immediate thing everybody will look at is Patrick Mahomes, who's going to win the MVP. Yep. Against this pass rush from the Eagles, which is not just the best we've seen this year, but it's generationally good. Yeah. There's only two teams in NFL history that had more sacks in a single season than this Eagles team.
Right.
It's the 84 and 85 Bears. So that's the obvious one to me, and I just love seeing greatness and the quarterback position and how do you combat that pass rush and what can you do offensively to try to help him out. But in a game that features two quarterbacks like this with their abilities and their skills and the dual threat components, I look for defensive players that can take games over, like who can step up and make plays.
Right.
The guy that I think who is one of the most dominant players on the field, and we just saw him virtually take the game over against the Bengals, is Chris Jones at defensive tackle for the Chiefs. He's a guy that has to have an impact, especially against the RPO game of Philadelphia and getting pressure on Jalen Hurts up the middle of the field and forcing him to move. That's a guy that if he doesn't play the way he did against the Bengals, I don't think the Chiefs have a shot of slowing down the Eagles.
So I'm curious, look, Chris Jones, obviously, they move him around a little bit, but he's mostly an interior guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he mostly relied on guard center. For people who don't know, maybe a younger fan or somebody getting into the game, why is it so much more difficult to deal with interior pressure as a quarterback or even as an offensive line as it is with these guys coming off the edges?
Two things. One, your best pass protectors on the offensive line are tackles. So generally, centers and guards are better run blockers, but in pass protection, not great. And that's why oftentimes the way protections are set up, when they slide different ways, the center can help a guard on either side of them to create a double team against a good pass rusher. The way the NFL has changed is these interior defensive linemen now are not just run stuffers. Like, it's not just William Fridge Perry.
Right.
In the middle,
Right.
Now you have Warren Sapp. Like, you have three techniques, Aaron Donald, and guys that have changed the position, Fletcher Cox or Chris Jones, who are so athletic and so quick that if they can split double teams or with their speed and their get off, but they also have the ability to swim around and use moves to get around guards who aren't as good pass protectors. That's problem number one. From a quarterback, pressure up the middle is always the worst because it's in your face and you see it. And our accuracy goes down. If we can't step into throws and we can't follow through on throws, our accuracy falters.
This game, I think one of the more fascinating things is you got Andy Reid on one side.
Yep.
And Andy Reid is one of the more creative offensive minds we've had in the NFL in the last 20, 30 years.
Sure.
And you mentioned that Eagles pass rush, which is incredible. Four guys with at least 11 sacks. Fletcher Cox hasn't even talked about it. He has 7.5.
Yeah.
You played in a division where Andy was on the other side. You played with the Giants for a few years. How do you expect Andy to try to combat some of this stuff up front and say, look, if we can mitigate that pass rush, we got a pretty good shot in this game. What do you do to try to slow that down and maybe make that less of a factor?
Yeah, with a quarterback who's probably not 100%, right?
Sure.
With Patrick Mahomes, who's he'll look better than he's looked the last two playoff games, but still not 100%. I think you saw a bit of the game plan against the Bengals. I think early in the game, it's getting the ball out quick. It's just trying to get Patrick Mahomes in a rhythm and a flow and try to find some access on some throws to Kelsey and some of these wideouts. But inevitably, you got to take shots, and I think you have to build your protections in a way to allow Patrick Mahomes to move a little bit. In a game like this, I think you have to change the launch point a lot. Like, you can't have Mahomes throwing it 7, 8, 9 yards behind center. I think there have to be semi-rolls or there's got to be boots. You saw a bit of it against the Bengals, and I think Mahomes will be better able to do that. But, let's not pretend like a lot of the magic of the Chiefs, too, is not just Mahomes sometimes dropping back, buying time, making a guy miss, stepping in the pocket, awkward body throw, find Travis Kelsey over the middle of the field on third down. That's just kind of what they do. And so, I think on the board and on paper, you can scheme up this Eagles pass rush. But executing that is an entirely different story. Mahomes was under serious pressure from the Bengals. This Eagles pass rush is way better than the Bengals up front. So it's one thing, I think, in theory to say we're going to protect it this way and we're going to keep our tight end in and we're going to chip our running back and help on Hassan Reddick. But ultimately, it's going to come down to Mahomes. He's going to need to be Superman and have to make some incredible throws under duress into some small windows.
It's interesting now in the NFL how young quarterbacks can have almost immediate success. Hurts is now in his third year. He's already in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Mahomes is in his sixth year, but he's had success since the day he stepped on the field.
Right.
20, 25 years ago, that was not the case most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of those guys came in, and even if they were top picks, they sat for a year, or they really struggled if they played early, and they'd maybe by their third or fourth year start really coming on.
Yeah.
Do you think a big difference is the college game now is so much more geared toward the passing game? You have a lot more of these air raids, spread offenses, throw the ball, get the ball out quick. It seems like quarterbacks have so many more reps in college and even in high school than they did in the 90s and the aughts. Is that something that you're watching so much college? Do you see that? And do you think that's maybe part of the reason some of these guys are having immediate success?
I would argue it's the biggest reason, personally. And I think the fact that the NFL has started copycatting college.
Yeah.
Like, the NFL has really gotten away from what I think it used to be, and it's incorporated tempo and spread principles and the RPO game and things, to your point, that these college kids coming into the league now have repped so many times in their lives. Like, think about what we're doing in the high school level with air raid offense and 7-on-7 camps.
Yeah.
In the offseason, you're constantly seeing coverages. You're getting so accustomed to what route concepts work against what kind of coverages. And then you fast forward to all the reps you get, and kids are playing as true freshmen now in college, in part because of the same thing. Yep. And then they get to the pro level, and they just have a much better feel and understanding of what's happening schematically on the field. I remember when I left Steve Spurrier, who was cutting edge. Yeah. Like, back in the 90s, he was changing the passing game of college football at the Fun and Gun down in Gainesville. But when I got to the NFL and the New York Giants, I was playing for Sean Payton as my offensive coordinator. it was an entirely different level of sophistication in the playbook. And it wasn't necessarily the route concepts, but it was, you had to know protections. And you had to know, like, you know, we're going to have a tight end. We're going to have 2 tight ends. We might have 3 tight ends and a fullback.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a condensed field, and you got to be able to know and move the protection and change it, keep yourself protected. That was just that took me an entire year alone just to feel comfortable about being protected, let alone who was supposed to get the football against what coverage. So the learning curve, I think, has changed entirely. I also think, you know, the talent of guys like Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts coming out of college is pretty amazing as well. There's a lot of factors, but no doubt, I think spread offense has really changed the game.
I wanted to ask you about Sean Payton, actually. Now, of course, taking the job in Denver,
Yeah.
with Russell Wilson really struggled this year.
Yeah.
I personally find it interesting, those 2 personalities working together. I mean, Sean Payton is not exactly like laid back and cuddly, right? I mean, that's not exactly – good guy, but not somebody who's going to be, hey, let's do whatever you want. And he already talked in the press conference about you. We're not going to be having personal coaches here.
Right.
That's not what we're going to do here.
Which I agree with, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
So, let me ask you that. Like, with what went on with Russell Wilson, I mean, look, it's well documented. He had his personal coaches, had an office in the building.
Yeah.
Played in the NFL. I mean, if you're a player in the room – is that something that's really off-putting to you? Do you not really care because you're like, I just got to do my job? I mean, where do you stand that, and where do you think Peyton and Wilson? How do you think that coexistence?
I think Peyton and Wilson, I think, is going to coexist great. Having played for Peyton and understanding his coaching style, and he's QB friendly in the way he thinks and how he coaches. And I think the things that he's going to harp on with Russell, I just think is going to work. He is a whisperer in a lot of ways. And he's very good, I think, at evaluating people in terms of what they're good at doing and putting them in position to succeed. Sean's playbook is as expansive as anyone's in football. He's from the John Gruden school. Yep. Like he's got stuff for everybody and any kind of quarterback that he can make work. And I think Russell's going to have to put some of that other stuff aside and understand that's Sean's building now. And and you're going to get coached by Sean between 7 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. And if you want to go work on some footwork drills, you know, afterwards, or you want to sit down and study film with someone else afterwards, you can go do that. But that's not going to be happening in the Broncos facility. And I think personally, I think his teammates, they'll appreciate that. I mean, there's going to be a very clear directive in that building with what's expected, what's acceptable. And Sean's talked about that already.
Yep. Being
obsessed with winning is something that people are going to have to get comfortable with. That's probably going to be – his style is going to be a bit foreign to some of those players in there, but it's the NFL, and they're not all going to be there on the roster next year.
No doubt. You knew Sean before he was Sean Payton, before he was head coach of the Saints and had the Super Bowl win. Do you have any like funny stories of him, or just stories you remember him being like, this guy is a little bit different than some other coaches?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of universally known how much of a grinder that guy is.
Yeah.
I talked about the Gruden school, and you know, Sean's the guy that will stay up till 3 a.m, sleep over at the office, because he's trying to find a way to shift and formate a play to convert a 3rd and 3 in the upcoming game. And then, you know, we would come in as quarterbacks. So it was Kerry Collins and Jason Garrett and I were coming in, and, you know, we have our 7 a.m. QB morning, and Sean has had like 20 minutes of sleep. He's got a giant dip in the mouth. He wouldn't sit in the chair. He would stand in the chair like this watching film because he just had to stay awake, and literally would be sitting there clicking the monitor with his mouth, just like dip drooling down his face, like, and just showing you with so much pride. You know, it's like explode to bunch right, FPO 322 Y stick X Oscar. This is going to work against the Eagles. We're going to convert a 3rd and 3, and you'd be sitting there like, bro, you stayed awake for 6 hours. So we might throw a slant to Amani Toomer and get a first down against the vaunted Eagles defense. Just his level of obsession was unbelievable.
That's great. That's great. I got to ask you, last thing quickly, the prediction for the Super Bowl, it seems like you're kind of leaning Philadelphia. Is that the way you're going?
Yeah, running the ball on offense and defense and that pass rush against Mahomes, who's probably not 100%.
Sure.
Eagles have been the best team in the NFL all year. When Jalen Hurts is on the field, they're the best team, and I don't think that changes.
Okay. Well, hey, Jesse Palmer.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for your time,
Thanks
man.
so much.
Jesse Palmer, Crown Royal, Radio Row, Super Bowl 57.